Yu was an ordinary boy with no special talents. Somehow, he ended up being accepted into a prestigious academy known for its elite and gifted students. From the very first day, life wasn't easy. His classmates mocked him for being talentless, and he quickly became the target of bullying. But things took an unexpected turn when Yu was invited to live in a mansion with 3 of the school's most talented and most admired girls. Each of them was beautiful, skilled, and far out of Yu's league in every way. Seika Academy was a famous school for talented students. It trained future stars in acting, sports, and advanced studies. Many of the most successful people in the world had graduated from there. One of them was Subaru Ayase, a legendary actress and top student. Now her son, Yu Ayase, had just transferred into the school, but Yu was not like his mother. While she had been admired by everyone, Yu was struggling to keep up. His mentor at the school treated him harshly, constantly yelling at him. It wasn't because of anything Yu did, it was just because of who he was. Everyone expected him to be like Subaru, while he wasn't. He failed many of his classes and was weak in martial arts. Even so, some students still believed that he might have hidden talent. After all, some geniuses take time to show their abilities. Subaru Ayase, Yu's mother, had been a perfect student. She was beautiful, smart, and brave, and she could do all her own performance stunts. She had graduated at the top of her class and was admired worldwide. Because of her reputation, people watched Yu closely and judged everything he did. One day, Yu's mentor told him that the top 3 students, called the 3 Royals, were curious about him. These 3 were the best in their fields. Wanting to prove himself, Yu gathered all his strength and threw a punch. But it was weak and barely touched his opponent. His mentor lost patience and slammed Yu to the ground. Everyone watching began to whisper that Yu, the son of Subaru Ayase, was a complete failure. Yu had heard this kind of talk many times since he turned 17. Lying on the floor, he looked up at his mentor and said something sharp about how average people often cared too much about talent. The mentor was briefly surprised. "You look just like Subaru," and even sounded like her for a moment. Still, the scolding continued. Yu said nothing more. He already knew how talented his mother was. He had seen it himself. Without replying, he walked away. Most people thought he had simply accepted defeat. But suddenly, the mentor was kicked from behind. It was Miko, the top martial artist in the school. Her 2 sisters, Kazuki and Meiwa, stood beside her. Kazuki was a famous actress and Meiwa was a sports genius. The 3 of them were the highest-ranked students in their programs. Yu looked up in surprise. The sisters were disappointed when they learned that he had failed his tests and had no special skills. They had hoped he would join their departments. But Yu had already moved into the general education course, a forgotten division of the school for students without any special talents. As he turned to leave, Nico reminded him of the rule that the loser had to clean the dojo, so he stayed behind to clean. The sisters walked away, tossing insults his way, but Yu didn't respond. He simply picked up a bucket and started working. The next day, the dojo was spotless. Students were shocked by how clean it was. No one knew Yu had cleaned everything by himself late into the night. As Yu walked home, he thought about his past. When he was a kid, he had wanted to be praised like his mother. He would act out movie scenes in front of the television. But every time he saw his mother perform, he realized he could never shine like her. He tried many different things, acting, sports, and studying, but never found something he was good at. Eventually, he gave up and grew distant from her, even though she was the only family he had. Later, his mother became sick and had to stay in the hospital. She often watched an old family drama series she had acted in. In it, she played a kind and simple mother. It wasn't one of her popular roles, but she liked it. So did Yu. One day, while sitting beside her bed, he told her that his favorite part of the show was the ending, where the whole family would gather around the table for dinner. That moment led to one of the only deep conversations they had in years. From that talk, you realized something important. His mother didn't care if he became famous. She only wanted him to have a happy family. That was her final wish. After she passed away, Yu packed his things and went to live at the home of Mr. Mikadono, a man who had been a friend and supporter of his mother. When Yu arrived, he stood in front of a large mansion with the Mikadono name at the gate. The house was huge, but he remembered that Mr. Mikadono had invited him, so he went inside. As soon as he entered, a foot hit him in the face. He fell to the floor. Miko, wearing only a towel, had mistaken him for a trespasser. She tried to kick him again but slipped. Yu, trying to help, threw a towel over her head to dry her off. She pulled away angrily. Just then, Kazuki and Meiwa appeared. Meiwa recognized Yu right away and demanded to know why he was there. Before he could answer, his phone rang. It was Mr. Mikadono, calling to check if Yu had arrived safely. The sisters stood in shock when Yu spoke casually to their father. Mr. Mikadono explained that he had promised Subaru to look after Yu. He wanted to support the boy and keep his mother's memory alive. What he forgot to mention was that Yu would be living with his daughters. Now Yu realized he was going to live in the same house as the 3 royals. The girls were not happy. Nico accepted it only because it was their father's decision. Kazuki couldn't believe their father had invited someone she considered a failure. Meiwa refused to help take care of him at all. But Yu didn't give up. He introduced himself politely and said he would do his best to get along. While unpacking, he accidentally stepped on a woman's undergarment. Kazuki grabbed it from him, blushing. Then Yu noticed how messy the house was. The kitchen was full of dirty dishes. The sink had broken glass. The laundry was piled up. Kazuki had tried to wash the dishes but failed. Maiwa had forgotten how to do laundry and wrote instructions on her hands. Nico blamed Yu for exposing their mess, though she was in charge of cleaning. You didn't say anything. You just started cleaning again. In no time, the mansion looked clean and organized. That's when Nico realized Yu had also cleaned the dojo. Yu smiled and said he didn't mind cleaning. It was something he could actually do well. The next morning, you woke up early, hoping for a calm day since there was no school. But the house was already full of noise. Nico was training loudly in her dojo. Meiwa was playing a video game and arguing with someone online. Kazuki was in the kitchen mixing a strange green drink. Yu sat at the table, hoping they might eat together. But Kazuki rushed out. Miwa counted her snacks as her breakfast. When you warned her about it, she ignored him. While he made breakfast for himself, he thought about how his mother had acted the same way. She had always been busy, skipping meals and focusing only on her work. Now he understood the sisters more. Kazuki needed to stay in shape to act. Miwa kept her mind sharp with snacks. Nico had to follow strict routines for her training. Talented people often got so focused on themselves that they didn't notice others. You remembered how even his mother made him feel like he didn't belong in her world. Before the girls left the house, you stopped them and told them they had forgotten something. They checked their bags in a panic, but found nothing missing. Then he calmly reminded them that they forgot to wish each other a nice day. The sisters didn't know how to respond. They brushed off his words as strange, but later, each of them remembered what he had said. Back in the kitchen, Yu was washing dishes when Mr. Mikadano called again. He explained that he would be away most of the time because of work. Yu would be spending his days alone with the sisters. Mr. Mikadano asked Yu for a favor to be there for the girls when they faced problems. He believed that Yu, even without special talent, could help them open up. Yu looked around the now-clean house. He didn't know how he could help 3 gifted girls as someone so average. But he remembered his mother's wish. He had promised to try. He wasn't talented. He wasn't special. But he would do his best. He would try to build the happy family his mother had always dreamed of. Even though it was a difficult task, Yu tried not to let Mr. Mikadano's requests overwhelm him. He couldn't help but wonder how someone like him, so ordinary, could possibly help 3 incredibly talented girls. Why would they even need help from someone like him? But Mr. Mikadano had explained everything. Kazuki had an important audition coming up, Nico was training for a national martial arts competition, and Miwa had a big Shaja title match on the horizon. He wanted Yu to support them through it all. After the call ended, Yu was outside hanging the laundry. The thoughts still lingered in his mind. He wasn't strong, smart, or special. He'd always struggled to find something he was good at. He understood failure very well. As the son of a famous actress with no talent of his own, he felt the sting of other people's disappointment more times than he could count. If that pain was already hard for someone average like him, he couldn't imagine how much worse it must be for someone everyone expected to succeed. Determined to help in any way he could, Yu hopped on his bicycle and headed to the market. He figured the first step to getting closer to them was to share a meal together. Later that evening, Nico came home and was surprised to see Yu in the kitchen. She had almost forgotten that he lived there now. Yu was in the middle of cooking and invited her to try the food. Thinking he was just trying to win her over, Nico turned him down and said she had already bought dinner for herself. She went to shower and dry her hair, but when she came back, she was surprised to see Yu still cooking, surrounded by a pile of cookbooks. He looked so focused. It made her realize he was really serious about making this meal. Miwa came home around the same time. Yu cheerfully told her he was making a family dinner. Nico still thought it was silly, and that Yu was just trying to get attention. But watching him reminded her of something from the past. Even when top chefs made their meals, the sisters often refused to eat them. Nico especially was strict about what she ate, always sticking to carefully planned meals for training. That night, Nico sat alone in her room, eating her pre-packed dinner. But her thoughts kept drifting back to Yu's cooking. Curious, she peeked downstairs. Seeing no one around, she quietly walked to the table. When she saw the meal he made, she was shocked. It was perfectly balanced for an athlete's diet. Just then, Yu appeared behind her and explained all the nutrients in the meal. He had even talked to a dietitian to make sure it fit her needs. Nico was amazed, but she tried not to show it. Still, she sat down to give it a try. When she didn't complain, Yu's face lit up with joy. Maiwa peeked down from the stairs. She saw her sister eating and couldn't help but feel curious too. She quietly came down and Yu offered her a plate designed specifically for her brain health. He happily listed out the ingredients and their benefits. Nico was surprised again. Yu had made a different meal for each of them. Maiwa tried to act like she didn't care, but Yu was persistent. Finally, the 2 sisters sat at the table, teasing each other like normal siblings. Seeing this made Yu smile, but the happy moment didn't last long. Kazuki walked in. Yu proudly presented a meal made just for her, full of nutrients to keep her looking her best for her career. But Kazuki didn't even look at the food. She turned and walked straight to her room. Deep down, seeing her sisters eating together like a real family warmed her heart, but she didn't feel like she belonged at that table. Not with food made by someone she saw as a nobody. Yu was frozen in place. His mood dropped instantly. Even Nico and Meiwa were annoyed by Kazuki's reaction. Nico offered to eat her sister's meal, but Yu stopped her, warning it could mess up her diet. He promised to take care of all their meals from now on. 3 days passed, and Yu still made no progress with Kazuki. In class, he couldn't stop thinking about her. He wondered how he could understand her better. Then an idea struck him. He stood up and left class, determined to do something. He found Kazuki surrounded by students, all admiring her beauty. Without thinking, he called out to her. Everyone stared. Kazuki warned him not to come closer. He tried to joke about all the effort he put into making her dinner, but Kazuki snapped at him, embarrassed by all the attention. Students began whispering that the two of them might be dating. Yu panicked and ran off. He decided to ask Miko for help. At the dojo, she was busy with training, and her annoyed face made it clear she didn't want to be bothered. Two teammates stepped forward, thinking Yu was causing trouble. Realizing he was in danger, Yu quickly ran away. Next, he turned to Miwa. He found her in class, casually playing on her phone. The other students were talking about how hard the homework was, and Miwa casually gave the right answer, surprising everyone. Yu was surprised to see her sitting alone. He asked her to eat lunch with him, but Miwa refused and walked off. Yu followed her, no matter where she went. They ended up running around the school in circles. Strangely, they ran at the same pace, proving Miwa wasn't much of an athlete either. Eventually, they both collapsed in exhaustion. Miwa admitted sports weren't her strength, but said she was still better than Yu. They joked about being different from everyone else. Yu called himself a royal too, of being short, weak, and stupid. Miwa laughed and said his good looks were misleading. Later, while eating sandwiches together, Yu opened up about his struggles with Kazuki. Miwa remembered something from childhood. Kazuki once asked their mother to cook just for her. She looked so happy. Maybe that memory held the key. When Kazuki came home, Yu announced what he planned to cook next. Kazuki's eyes widened and she suddenly collapsed. Her sisters rushed over. She said she was just tired, but her forehead was burning with fever. Yu brought porridge to her room, but Kazuki shut him out. Her sisters explained that she often got sick and that rehearsals had been tough lately. For the next few days, Yu continued delivering meals to her room, but she returned them untouched with a note saying, "Take that away." Finally, Yu reached his breaking point, but as he turned to leave, Kazuki collapsed again, falling right into his arms. Still, he didn't give up. He offered to bring her supplements and even help her rehearse so she wouldn't fall behind. He remembered he had acted once too, though only because his mother pulled strings to get him in. He tried reading the script and acting alongside her, but his performance was awful and Kazuki kicked him out. The next day, he tried again. Still bad. He kept trying, reading the script over and over, but nothing worked. That night, Kazuki laid in her bed, thinking that someone like Yu, who was amateur, could never really understand what it meant to be a professional. She had always been admired and given the main roles. That meant there was always pressure on her to do well. Failing was never an option. Wanting to improve herself, Kazuki finally got up. When she walked into the living room, she saw Yu watching a movie on TV. It was the same story she was practicing for. She realized that even after his long days at school and doing chores, Yu was spending his nights studying the movie just to help her practice. The next morning, Yu's acting was still awkward and stiff. But this time, Kazuki didn't tell him to stop. He had clearly worked hard. Then something surprising happened. After Kazuki said her line, Yu replied with so much feeling that the scene actually turned out well. He was so moved that he started crying. After failing many times, he had finally done something right. Kazuki thought it was silly to cry over one good scene, so she scolded him a little to calm him down. Still, deep inside, she quietly wished she could return to acting soon. Later, Kazuki spoke up. She said she was ready to try Yu's cooking, but only if he agreed to one condition. She was shy about it at first and pulled a blanket over her face. Then, in a soft voice, she listed the foods she didn't like. After all this time, she still didn't want anyone to know how picky she was about food. That morning, Meiwa and Miko couldn't believe what they were seeing. Kazuki was eating breakfast with them, and not just snacks, but real food. Yu passed by and casually praised her for finishing her soup. Kazuki simply said it was fine as long as there were no carrots. Little did she know, Yu had secretly grated some into the soup. As he quietly ate his own meal, Yu felt relieved. It had taken effort to bring all three sisters together at the table. They were difficult to manage, but for a moment, it felt worth it. However, by evening, his joy faded. One after another, the sisters sent messages saying they wouldn't be home for dinner. Yu tried not to show his disappointment, but his voice gave it away. Just when he thought they were becoming like a family, things were falling apart again. He remembered how he used to be left alone often. His mother, a genius actress, would be gone for months because of her work. Even though he admired her, that distance had created a gap between them. Now seeing the Mikado sisters, each a prodigy in their own way, he couldn't help but compare them to his mother. He often felt like he didn't belong next to such talented people. Still, Mr. Mikado had asked him to take care of them, and Yu wanted to do that properly. The problem was, he didn't really know what a happy family was supposed to look like. Looking for answers, Yu thought about his favorite movie, a film series where his mom played a loving mother. It wasn't full of drama, just warm moments and small smiles. That's the kind of family he wanted. So he rewatched all the movies one after another until he reached the wedding scene where his mother in beautiful dress married the lead actor. Watching it moved him, but also reminded him how different real life was from movies. By then, the sisters had returned home. When they entered the living room, they found Yu watching the movie with teary eyes. Curious, Maiwa peeked at the screen and was shocked to realize he had binged the entire series. Kazuki recognized the actress, Sumaru, Yu's mother. She figured he must really miss her. Taking a deep breath, Kazuki gently told Yu he didn't have to do all the chores or cook just to be accepted. Meiwa agreed, telling him to take it easy. Nico, however, bluntly called him a freeloader. He was hurt and stood up, saying he didn't see himself that way. Even though he had problems with his mother, he now understood her better and wanted to do things right this time. He wanted to connect with them and build a real family. But the sisters didn't seem to get it. Nico scoffed, saying family didn't mean much, especially for people like them. She questioned how someone like you could ever be family to them. Just then, the wedding scene played on the screen again. The actor spoke a heartfelt vow to Subaru about building a family together. The sisters froze. Instead of understanding his true feelings, they misunderstood, thinking you wanted to marry them all. Clueless, you kept talking and asked Nico when her birthday was. He said since they were in the same grade, he wanted to know who was older so they could decide who the big sibling was. The girls turned red with frustration and, without letting him finish, called him a freeloader again and stormed off. That night, while soaking in the bath, Nico found herself thinking about you. She was bothered by how calm he always was even while living with 3 girls. Suddenly, a loud scream came from the kitchen. You could have forgotten to buy bread and was panicking. When he turned around and saw Nico wearing only a towel, his concerns shifted. He calmly warned her that she might catch a cold. Embarrassed, Nico ran off, merely bumping into Miwa, who noticed her red face. Miwa asked what was wrong, but Nico claimed it was just the heat from the bath. Still, Miwa was suspicious. Nico had never reacted this way before, even when you accidentally saw her with a towel. Miwa squinted at her, and Nico quickly denied everything. Just then, you walked in carrying freshly folded laundry and handed it to Miwa. Their hands touched, and Miwa's face turned pink. She quickly pulled her hand back. Seeing this, Nico grew even more suspicious. When Nico kept asking her back, Miwa realized what it meant. She thought Nico had a crush on you too. The two started bickering and denying everything. Meanwhile, you remained completely unaware, calmly picking up the scattered clothes and folding them again. Kazuki soon stepped in and scolded her sisters. You politely asked her to place a pot on the top shelf, which she couldn't reach. Kazuki was in a good mood and helped, but when you thanked her with a bright smile, her face turned red. She turned away, hoping he didn't notice. Miwa and Nico, however, caught her reaction right away and began teasing her. You, still not understanding, asked them to stop fighting, thinking it was just their usual argument. As the girls left the room, you noticed the mess and started cleaning. While wiping the table, he found an old photo of the sisters when they were young, smiling and hugging each other. They looked so happy back then, so different from how distant they were now. He asked who left the photo out, but none of them admitted it. He didn't believe them. Someone still treasured that memory, and you wanted to help bring that warmth back. The next day, the sisters told him they would each be away for the weekend due to their own competitions and activities. At school, you couldn't focus. The idea of them growing further apart made him uneasy, so he secretly checked their destinations and had an idea. That night, he bought and gave each of them their hotel and flight tickets, saying he wanted to make things easier. Miwa muttered that the hotel food might not be great, and you noticed she seemed like she might miss his cooking, but she denied it. He smiled and promised to cook something nice when they returned. Later, Miwa finished her first shogi match with a win, but her mentor warned that her next opponent would be tougher. While heading to her hotel, she passed under cherry blossoms and saw a nearby festival, reminding her of old memories. When she reached the hotel, she was surprised to see Kazuki checking in too. Kazuki said her performance theater was nearby. Moments later, Nico also arrived. Her event was close as well. The 3 sisters were confused until you showed up, smiling. He admitted he arranged it so they'd be near each other, hoping it would help them bond again. At first, the sisters thought it was silly, but you explained that the Cherry Blossom Mag Festival was tonight, and they were already here. He even added that the shrine they were said to bring luck to competitors. Nico laughed it off, saying geniuses didn't need prayers. In response, you showed them a booklet filled with names of famous prodigies who had visited the shrine. The sisters were surprised. Then you pulled out a festival guide with pictures of food stalls. That caught Miwa and Miko's attention. Kazuki agreed to go to the festival, saying it would be great for social media. You then said he had already found the best places to rent kimonos. They headed to a shop, and the staff, seeing the sisters, were excited to help. Kazuki chose a classy black and white kimono that fit her elegant image. Miwa picked a green one with cute kitten prints. You smiled as you took their photos. Nico, however, stayed quietly in the corner, saying she didn't like kimonos. You spoke to her gently, reminding her there were many different styles to choose from. The staff, noticing her hesitation, suggested a denim-style kimono that matched her cool and confident vibe. But you handed her a soft pink kimono adorned with cherry blossoms instead. Her sisters were unsure. It didn't seem like something Nico would wear, but you believed it would suit her perfectly. Now it was up to Nico to decide. Time passed, and the others began to wonder what was taking so long. Finally, the door slid open. Nico stepped out wearing the pink kimono, her hair neatly styled. She looked stunning. For a moment, everyone stood in silence, too surprised to speak. Feeling self-conscious, Nico mumbled that she probably looked weird. But their wide eyes and speechless expressions told a different story. They were all in awe of how beautiful she looked. That night, you wandered through the lively festival with the 3 Mikado sisters. He had hoped they could enjoy it together like a happy family. But to his surprise, Kazuki quickly became the center of attention. Fans surrounded her, asking for photos and cheering her on like she was on stage. She handled the crowd gracefully, and you hesitated to interrupt. Still, even while smiling for pictures, Kazuki kept an eye on her sisters. She noticed Miwa and Nico happily trying out food from the festival stalls. Nearby, one girl stood apart from the crowd. She admitted Kazuki was beautiful, but insisted she was still just a girl like anyone else. She turned to walk away, but suddenly the strap of her slipper broke and she tripped. Just before she hit the ground, Kazuki reached out and caught her. The crowd gasped, then cheered. Without paying much attention to the noise, Kazuki helped the girl to a safer spot. You, watching from a distance, followed them through the crowd. When Kazuki made sure the girl was okay and turned to leave, you quietly pulled her aside behind some bushes. At first, Kazuki looked annoyed. But before she could scold him, you handed her a bag of food and a small bandage. He had noticed she was walking with a slight limp and guessed her sandal strap had hurt her foot. Though Kazuki tried to brush it off, you insisted. When she finally showed him her foot, the injury was worse than expected. She had still carried someone with that wound. You asked why she hadn't said anything. Kazuki replied that as someone seen as a prince to others, asking for help would disappoint everyone's expectations. But you said that didn't matter. Everyone should be allowed to be themselves. He carefully helped her put on the bandage, and Kazuki felt a soft blush rise to her cheeks. Meanwhile, Miwa and Nico were trying out a goldfish scooping game. Miko was frustrated. Every scoop tore. Miwa laughed, which only made her more annoyed. Just in time, Kazuki returned wearing a mask to avoid being recognized, with Yu right behind her. They split into teams, Kazuki and Yu versus Miwa and Miko. Miwa teased Kazuki that the mask looked better than her usual serious face. As they played, Miwa caught fish easily while Miko kept losing. Kazuki accused Miwa of cheating, but Miwa proudly said they just lacked skill. Yu, watching the friendly bickering, sighed at how seriously they were taking a kid's game. Soon after, Yu quietly slipped away. His plan was simple: keep the sisters time together. But he had a mission too. He ran across the festival grounds, heading straight for the Lotus Hopping Challenge, a special event. To win, contestants had to cross a pond by jumping on lotus-shaped platforms and reach a torii gate at the end. The prize, a photo with the shrine's golden guardian, said to bring great luck, especially for people with upcoming competitions. You clutched a photo of the sisters from childhood, taken at the same shrine. He wanted to recreate that memory, to help them feel close again. But the challenge was harder than expected. Some lotus pads were unstable and would sink. Contestants fell one after another. The crowd said it was impossible. No one had finished it in 10 years. One host remembered, however, that 3 young sisters had done it long ago. Yu stepped up. On his first try, he immediately fell into the water. He tried again and again, failing each time. Most people gave up, but not Yu. He kept begging for more chances. As the sky darkened and rain began to fall, the host begged him to stop, but Yu stayed focused. He imagined how the sisters might have worked together, balancing each other's weaknesses. Using that image in his mind, he made one final run and jumped. This time, he landed on solid ground in front of the gate. The crowd cheered, and the host raised a camera to take his prize photo, but Yu refused. Instead, he ran back toward where he left the sisters. The rain poured harder, and festival staff announced early closure. Yu stopped in the empty street, soaked and alone. Maybe they'd gone home already. Maybe he had pushed them too hard. Just as he lay down, disappointed, he opened his eyes to find the 3 sisters standing there. Earlier at the festival, the girls had worried about how to find Yu since they didn't have his number. Miwa joked about posting a missing person alert on Kazuki's fan page. But when they tried to describe him, they couldn't agree. Kazuki said his smile was his best trait. She had seen it up close. Miwa claimed she knew everything about him, especially his cooking. Miko said Yu always bought her protein and sports tape when she needed it. All 3 turned red, realizing how personal their comments sounded. In the end, they gave up on social media and decided to find him themselves. Back at the present, each of them is holding an umbrella. He thought they'd left him, but it was the opposite. Now they wanted him to lead them back to the hotel. There was just one problem: they didn't bring an extra umbrella for him. All 3 offered to share theirs with him, but ended up arguing over who should get the chance. Back at the hotel, the sisters soaked in the bath together. Kazuki and Miwa chatted about the festival, while Miko stayed quiet. She kept thinking about the walk back under the umbrella. She had won the right to share it with Yu in a game of rock, paper, scissors. But during that short walk, her heart beat too fast, and even now she couldn't explain why. Miwa teased that it must be the kimono making her feel strange. Miko moved around awkwardly, and Kazuki and Miwa burst into laughter, joking that she was finally becoming a proper woman. When the bath ended, they were surprised to see Yu at the lobby, soaking wet. He had forgotten to book a room and planned to look for another place to sleep, even if it meant a net cafe. The sisters were shocked. Kazuki quickly asked for an extra futon, and soon Yu was spreading bedding on the floor in their room. This ruined his original plan to give them time alone, but no one could let him sleep outside in the rain. They acted casual, but it was clear they cared. After all, they'd once lived together. Sharing a room now wasn't that strange. Yu said he would stay out of their way. He went to find a robe and bumped into Kazuki, who blushed but tried to hide it. Miwa searched the cupboards for spare robes. When Yu helped her, they accidentally ended up face to face, making Miwa flustered. Later, Yu helped Miko reach a robe from a high shelf, unintentionally cornering her against the cabinet. Yu left for his bath, apologizing for being in the way. The 3 sisters stood in silence, unsure how to relax with him nearby. That night, none of them could sleep. They pretended it was the excitement, but really, something felt different. Suddenly, Kazuki brought up Miko's flowery kimono, and a quiet chat turned into laughter and memories. They talked about their childhood, their old habits, and how much had changed, except Miwa, who still got excited about picking kimonos. They remembered how close they once were, how life had pulled them apart even while living under the same roof. They realized Yu had brought them back together. Somehow, his silly plan had worked. Miwa held up the photo Yu had lost. It had been with her all along. She compared it to the new one on her phone. The shrine looked the same, the smiles on their faces were real this time. The next day, Kazuki's perfect performance made headlines and Miwa and Nico won their competitions. Even after a sleepless night at the festival, they still shined. To him, they really were prodigies. Ever since the festival, you noticed the sisters had grown much closer. They supported each other more now, and the thought made him smile during class. He remembered the promise he made before they left to cook them a nice dinner when they got back. That afternoon, you came home with a bag full of groceries, ready to cook. But something felt off. The sisters' shoes were already by the door. They were home early. When you walked inside, he saw them standing in front of a man he didn't recognize. He got closer and realized it was Mr. Mikadono, their father. Surprised, you bowed and thanked him for letting him stay in their home. But Mr. Mikadono didn't smile. Instead, he reminded you that he must develop the talents his mother once had. You, unsure of himself, just laughed awkwardly. Then Mr. Mikadono asked his daughters about their progress. One by one, the sisters shared their recent successes. He listened and told them to keep improving. Then he stood up to leave. You quickly stepped forward and invited him to stay for dinner. But Mr. Mikadono refused. He said he only came to hear how his daughters were doing. As he turned to leave, he noticed a mask Kazuki had worn at the festival. Curious, he asked about it. You, not thinking, explained the whole story. The sisters going to the festival, revisiting childhood memories, and staying together. Mr. Mikadono went silent, then picked up the mask and put it on. His voice turned cold. He blamed you for distracting his daughters from their goals. You tried to explain about the lucky shrine they visited, but it only made things worse. Mr. Mikadono got angrier. He said he raised his daughters to be the best and things like festivals were a waste of time. Then he turned on you, calling him a failure. Even though you was the son of Subaru Ayase, a famous woman, he had no real accomplishments. Mr. Mikadono warned that someone without talent didn't belong in his house. Yu's eyes filled with tears, but Mr. Mikadono kept going, even grabbing you by the shoulder. That's when the sisters stepped between them. Each defended you in her own way, saying he made their lives easier and happier. But none of them admitted they truly needed him. They just said he helped. That night, you ate dinner alone. The sisters stayed in their rooms just like before. Mr. Mikadono had banned festivals and warned them to stay focused. You had cooked a meal for everyone, but they all said they were too busy to eat together. A week passed and things went back to how they were when you first arrived. The closeness was gone. During rehearsals, Nico stayed late instead of rushing home. She trained hard all day but only ate a small food packet at night. The food didn't taste good anymore. Kazuki practiced for her play and drank her smoothie, but it didn't make her happy. Maiwa played shogi while eating her favorite snacks, but they weren't satisfying. All three sisters started to realize the same thing. The meals they once enjoyed now felt empty. You, folding laundry, kept thinking about Mr. Mikadono's harsh words. He wondered if his dream of a simple, happy family was too small for people like them. But then he remembered his mom, who was also a prodigy. Even she had wanted a peaceful family life. That thought gave you strength. He decided he would keep trying to build a happy home with the sisters. The next morning, the sisters left for school, but they noticed something strange. You didn't say goodbye. Later during lunch, Nico opened her usual salad, but found a homemade lunch instead. Her friends were amazed. The meal was made perfectly for her. She was so touched that she almost cried. Maiwa and Kazuki also found homemade lunches in their bags. When others tried to take some, Nico quickly protected her lunch. That small act reminded her how much you cared. That afternoon, while doing dishes, you saw all the lunch boxes were empty. He was still surprised when Kazuki came over with a bold idea. She told you that if he kept cooking for them, he could stay. With her auditions, Nico's tournament, and Miwa's match coming up, they needed him. You happily agreed. Even if they only saw him as a helper, he would still cook for them every day. The next day, you sent them off with fresh lunches and told them to have a good day. His kind words made all three girls feel flustered. Kazuki stood in the restroom at the studio, adjusting her wig. Two girls walked in, talking about the rehearsal, and noticed her. Kazuki smiled, but deep down she was nervous. Meanwhile, Nico got a call during practice. When she saw the caller, she answered excitedly. It was someone close to her, just back from overseas. He said he was looking forward to her tournament. Maiwa, practicing with her mentor, lost again. Her mentor asked her to choose between two future paths. Miwa didn't know what to do. That evening, the sisters came home feeling heavy. Kazuki had to act in her first female role. Nico had to impress someone important. Miwa was facing a big life decision. On top of all that, they still carried the pressure from their father. They found Yu in the kitchen, stomping on dough. He was making healthy udon from scratch, but then he slipped and fell. The sisters laughed, and since they were early, decided to eat with him. You made different udon bowls for each of them. As they ate, Nico asked where he learned to cook. She said the flavor was just average. Kazuki and Miwa agreed it wasn't special, but it reminded them of something. Their father always said being average was bad. But this ordinary meal felt warm and comforting. Maybe even simple things could be good. After dinner, you washed dishes. Kazuki came over and offered to help. You were surprised. She said she was working on being more feminine. Yu wasn't sure that would help, but let her wash anyway. While they talked, Yu asked about her audition. Kazuki admitted she'd been anxious, but being home made her feel better. She noticed Yu's hands were full of cuts and burns. Even though people thought he was a good cook, he was still clumsy. Then Kazuki dropped a plate. It made a loud noise, but it didn't break. Yu told her he used strong plastic, so she could drop as many as she wanted. As he cleaned up, Yu slipped and hit the floor. His nose started bleeding. Kazuki rushed over, but stepped on chopsticks and lost her balance. Her lips accidentally landed on Yu's. They kissed by mistake. Yu was stunned and quickly apologized. But Kazuki stayed calm. She said it was just an accident and reminded him to stop the bleeding before walking away. Yu stood there, frozen. For Kazuki, it was probably nothing. But for Yu, it was his first kiss. The next day, it looked like rain. Kazuki checked the forecast on TV and saw a kissing scene, which made her freeze. Later, Meiwa ate a wobbly dessert and compared it to soft lips. Kazuki blushed and stormed off. Yu followed her into her room and brought up the kiss again. Kazuki acted like it didn't matter. Convinced, Yu apologized and left, but Kazuki was upset that it didn't mean anything to him. During rehearsal, Kazuki couldn't stop thinking about Yu. She struggled with her female role. Her mentor noticed and warned her not to let personal feelings get in the way. Kazuki knew he was right. When she got home, she asked Yu for a stamina meal and some help. Then she asked if he was free on Sunday. Thinking it was for errands, Yu said yes. But Kazuki leaned closer and told him with a serious face that she wanted to go on a date. Kazuki was never the type to act shy. That was why Yu was completely shocked when she suddenly asked him out on a date. Her voice was direct, almost demanding, as if this was an order rather than a request. What neither of them knew was that upstairs, her sisters Miko and Meiwa were eavesdropping from the second floor. They pressed themselves against the railing, unable to believe what they were hearing. Both of them were stunned that Kazuki, of all people, was asking Yu on a date. To them, it felt impossible. Before Yu could answer, the sisters ran off to their rooms, not wanting to get caught listening. Downstairs, Yu sat frozen, unsure of how to respond. He finally asked why Kazuki wanted this. Instead of giving a normal answer, Kazuki pulled out a flyer. It was for an audition that required her to play a feminine role. For years, she had only acted as princes and heroic male figures. The thought of acting like a heroine frightened her. She admitted that her mentor once told her that to act, one must experience things personally. To understand a heroine's feelings, she needed to go on a real date. At last, Yu understood. This wasn't about romance, it was training. Still, he could tell Kazuki was serious. Though she excelled at princely roles, this was a challenge she could not take lightly. So Yu agreed to help her. They would go out on Sunday. Kazuki leaned closer and warned him to keep it secret from her sisters. She also made it clear that he should not misunderstand her intentions. Yu nodded, already aware of that. But deep down, he wanted to make the date as fun and exciting as possible for her. Saturday came. Yu was cleaning the house when Miko casually asked him about his plans for Sunday. Trying to keep a secret, Yu answered that he had nothing important to do. But this only made Miko angry, convinced that he was lying. Meiwa, who had overheard the original conversation, became even more suspicious later when she heard Yu whispering to himself, promising to make the best date possible for Kazuki. Her cheeks turned red, and she became so flustered she couldn't even form words. That night, the four of them sat together for dinner, something they hadn't done in a while. But instead of being warm, the air was tense. The sisters shot suspicious looks at Yu and Kazuki. Sunday morning arrived. Yu waited at the meeting spot, dressed neatly, his heart beating faster than usual. Unbeknownst to him, Miko and Meiwa had bought disguises from a shop nearby. At first, they wore silly costumes, teasing each other, but in the end they looked surprisingly good. Determined to find out the truth, they followed Yu secretly. Watching him wait for Kazuki, they admitted to each other that they could never imagine her going on a date with a boy. In their minds, Kazuki suited a girl better. Then Kazuki appeared. She wore a long black wig and a simple Sunday dress. For a moment, Yu and the hidden sisters were speechless. Kazuki looked completely different, almost unrecognizable. Despite wanting to smack Yu for staring, Kazuki tried to act gentle and charming like a heroine. Yu complimented her, but she quickly reminded him that she was only practicing. With a sweet voice, she asked him to begin their date. Their first stop was the aquarium. Yu tried his hardest to make everything perfect. Nico and Meiwa trailed behind, still in disbelief. When they walked down the stairs, Kazuki steadied Yu so he wouldn't stumble. It was supposed to be the other way around, but they laughed it off to stay in character. At the dolphin show, Kazuki clapped softly, forcing herself to act cute. But when water splashed the audience, she shielded Yu instead of letting him protect her. The crowd admired her, calling her cool. Kazuki's princely aura was hard to erase. From there, things went downhill. A shopping bag ripped open. A waiter messed up their order. Kazuki's feet grew sore from her sandals. She dragged herself along, tired and frustrated. Watching from afar, Meiwa whispered that the date was sinking. Later, Yu went to the bathroom, leaving Kazuki alone. She looked at her reflection and sighed, thinking she was failing as a girl just as much as Yu failed at almost everything. Then a man approached her. He claimed to be a talent scout from a modeling agency and praised her figure. Kazuki, not daring to reveal her true identity, tried to avoid him. But he pressed harder, insisting she should model. Just as he tried to grab her hand, Yu appeared. He took Kazuki's wrist and pulled her close. The man assumed Yu was her little brother, but Yu corrected him firmly, saying that he was her date. When the scout demanded proof, Yu panicked. Words failed him until he blurted out that he was going to marry her. Both Kazuki and the man froze. Whispers spread through the nearby crowd. The scout laughed it off and left, but the damage was done. Kazuki turned bright red, humiliated by Yu's clumsy declaration. Yu urged her to forget it, then grabbed her hand and pulled her along naturally, without even realizing how close they looked. Hidden nearby, Nico and Miwa nearly screamed in shock. Hand in hand, Yu and Kazuki walked awkwardly. People mistook them for siblings, but Yu boldly intertwined his fingers with hers. Kazuki's heart jumped. Though embarrassed, she tightened her grip too. Their next stop was the cinema. Yu suggested a romantic film starring Kazuki's idol. She hesitated. This idol was famous for male roles just like her, and the movie had been her first attempt at a feminine character. Kazuki had never dared to watch it, fearing what she might feel. Yu, unaware of this, thought it would give her pointers, so they went inside. As the film played, Kazuki realized her idol hadn't shaken off her old habits. Though talented, the actress still carried herself like a man, even as a heroine. When the credits rolled, people whispered criticisms. Kazuki remembered her father's harsh words, saying that a prodigy must never fail. Her chest tightened. Instead of inspiring her, the movie crushed her confidence. Yu cursed himself for choosing it. From the shadows, Nico and Miwa also sighed, thinking the date was ruined. Yu refused to give up. Their final stop was the Ferris wheel. Nico and Miwa mocked the cliché at first, but when someone nearby mentioned it was known for creating new couples, they fell silent. As the ride began, Yu admired the view, but Kazuki only stared at him. Her thoughts drifted back to her childhood. Always dressed as a boy, always acting on stage, never allowed to simply be herself. At 6 years old, she debuted as a prince. Since then, every role carried heavy expectations. Now forced into femininity, she felt trapped again. Her thoughts broke when she noticed Yu trembling. He wasn't afraid of heights, but the glass floor terrified him. Kazuki asked why he chose this ride, and Yu admitted he only wanted their date to end perfectly. At the peak, Yu tried to encourage her, fumbling over his words. He told her she could be the best heroine. Though awkward, his determination touched her. He then pulled out his phone and showed her photos he had secretly taken, moments where she looked unguarded and natural. At first, Kazuki was embarrassed, but as he flipped through them, she barely recognized herself. She wasn't only a prince, she had many sides, each one real. Yu told her that while people often feared flaws, others could find beauty in them. Kazuki blushed and looked away, but his words stayed with her. When the ride ended, they stepped off smiling. The mother noticed Nico and Miwa quickly hiding nearby. Walking home, Yu asked about Kazuki's auditions. She admitted that for years she had been playing roles others expected, but now she wanted to act in her own way, even if she stumbled. Yu reassured her, reminding her to think back on this date if she ever messed up. Kazuki's face turned red. She suddenly ran ahead, not wanting him to see. From behind the bushes, Nico and Miwa whispered nervously, unsure what would happen next between them. Kazuki, however, had made her choice. She would give the audition her all. Before leaving for rehearsal, she leaned close to Yu. For a moment, he thought she would kiss him, but instead she softly admitted that the kiss they had shared before had been her first, and she could not forget it. Hit nearby, her sisters nearly fainted, unable to hear exactly what she said, but rattled by the intimacy. Kazuki then took off her wig, returning to her usual princely self. She waved goodbye. Later, Yu rushed to prepare dinner. Nico and Miwa acted as if nothing had happened, but secretly wanted to know everything. When they greeted him with a casual welcome home, Yu's face lit up with joy. He even asked them to repeat it, shocking them with how happy it made him. Though they pretended to be annoyed, deep down the sisters realized something. The two wanted Yu to cheer for them, just like he had done for Kazuki. And somewhere in her heart, Kazuki had already changed. She was no longer just the prince on stage. She was ready to step forward as herself, no matter what. A few days later, Nico and Yu were walking to school together, both buried in their notes. A big test was coming up, and they wanted to review as much as possible. Yu couldn't understand how Kazuki and Miwa stayed so calm during exam periods. The truth was simple. Those two never crammed at the last minute. Nico, on the other hand, was different. Her grades weren't great, so she studied hard every chance she got, determined to do better. Yu offered to compare notes with her. Even though they were in different classes, some lessons overlapped. But just as Yu tried to share his notebook, a man rushed past and bumped into him. A girl's voice suddenly cried out from behind, shouting that her bag had been stolen. Without thinking, Yu ran after the thief. His pace, however, was so slow that even the thief turned around, confused at how sluggish his pursuer was. Distracted, the robber didn't notice Nico standing directly in his path. He quickly regained his balance and sneered, boasting about his martial arts skills as he prepared to counterattack. The man looked tough and confident, but Nico refused to back down. From a distance, Kazuki and Miwa stayed calm, certain that their sister could handle it. Their trust proved right. Nico delivered a clean, powerful blow and knocked the thief out cold. She picked up the stolen handbag, scoffing at his weakness. While the shaken victim was surrounded by people, Nico stood off to the side, hiding a small cut on her hand. Yu noticed immediately and hurried to wrap it in a bandage. Nico insisted she was fine, but his gentle care left her unexpectedly flustered. The scene took another twist when the thief, still conscious, tried to sneak away. Unfortunately for him, he collided head-on with a group of men. The one leading them reacted instantly. kicking the thief with precise strength and knocking him out cold again. The murmurs spread quickly. This man was Tatsumi, the martial arts prodigy from Iwama High. The sisters recognized him as someone who used to visit their house when they were young. Miko, however, was left completely stunned. Tatsumi had been her idol for as long as she could remember. To everyone's surprise, Tatsumi immediately told Miko that he was here for her. Later at Seika's school dojo, shocking news arrived. Iwama High's martial arts team would be training with them for an entire week. To Yu's surprise, he was allowed to tag along. The reason was simple. Tatsumi's sudden reappearance had been bothering him, and he couldn't help but follow Miko. Watching how much Miko admired Tatsumi, Yu silently thought this man must be unbeatable. Miko had even trained at the same dojo as Tatsumi when they were younger, though her friends still considered him bad news. To make matters worse, Tatsumi drew plenty of attention from female martial artists. They surrounded him, praising his skills and good looks. Miko, unable to hold back, challenged Tatsumi to a spar. At first he hesitated. He didn't like the idea of fighting a girl, but Miko was persistent, and soon the two stood face to face, each team cheering for their captain. The fight ended quickly. Tatsumi's swift kick knocked Miko out of the match. Her teammates were stunned. They had never seen her lose so easily. Miko was in disbelief too, demanding another round. Yu stepped in before she could continue, scolding Tatsumi for not going easy. But Tatsumi had already been holding back. Later, Miko opened up to Yu. She told him how Tatsumi had once been her hero. On her first day at the dojo, she had defeated all the older boys, who then tried to gang up on her. Before she could get hurt, Tatsumi stepped in and protected her. He had moved away in middle school, but they crossed paths again at the Nationals. Since then, he had been her source of strength. He was surprised. He had always seen Miko as the strongest, never realizing she too looked up to someone. Their talk was cut short when Tatsumi approached. After seeing Miko's potential firsthand, he told her he wanted her to join him. Everyone around them was shocked. Tatsumi explained that he wanted her on Iwama High's martial arts team. The school, once for boys only, had recently become co-ed. He had even spoken with Mr. Mikadona already, convinced it was the best way for Miko to reach her full potential. Tatsumi argued that Miko's opponents at Seika High were too weak, and that while she helped her teammates improve, no one truly helped her grow stronger. His words stung, leaving her teammates silent and guilty. Miko tried to defend them, but to her surprise, they agreed with Tatsumi. They admitted they might be holding her back. Tatsumi pressed further, urging her to join him at Iwama High so they could become the best together. Later that evening, Yu walked home with Miko. He congratulated her on the recruitment offer, but she avoided the topic. Though she admitted it was an honor, her feelings were mixed. Iwama High was a boarding school that carefully managed diet, training, and living conditions, an ideal environment for prodigies like her. But Miko wasn't sure anymore. Thoughts of her sisters and Yu weighed heavily on her heart. When they reached the house, she surprised Yu by quietly saying she wanted to stay with him. Even more surprising, her martial arts teammates suddenly appeared nearby, agreeing with her. They admitted they didn't want her to leave, though they wouldn't stop her if she chose to go. That night during dinner, Kazuki let Miko use her shampoo, something she never allowed before. Miwa also gave her sashimi without being asked. Their unusual kindness made Miko realize how much her sisters cared about her. Yu added that everyone at school already knew about her recruitment. Maybe it wasn't just her teammates, everyone wanted her to stay. Later, in the bath, Miko thought about Yu's words. She couldn't deny it. Even Kazuki and Miwa seemed against her leaving. In the middle of her thoughts, Yu's image suddenly came to mind, leaving her flustered. The next day at the dojo, while both teams trained together, Miko walked up to Tatsumi. With determination, she firmly rejected his offer. The crowd was stunned. Tatsumi, however, refused to accept her answer, saying she lacked ambition. He claimed she would never rise above being ordinary if she stayed at Seika Academy. Miko hesitated, but deep down she knew her true reason, her sisters and Yu. Still, before she could answer again, a sudden noise came from a locker. Yu stepped out, revealing he had overheard everything. He admitted he understood Tatsumi's intentions. Tatsumi only wanted her to reach her potential. Tatsumi confirmed this, but also criticized Seika for lacking serious training. Without hesitation, Yu challenged Tatsumi to a fight. When asked why, Yu simply said he wanted to stay by Miko's side. The words lit up her eyes, and the crowd erupted in murmurs. Still, everyone knew the truth. You got no chance. Tatsumi was the nation's top martial artist, a 3-time champion. Yu, on the other hand, was just an ordinary student, though the son of the famous Subaru. Tatsumi scoffed but agreed. The match would be held on the last day of joint training. If Yu lost, Miko had to join Iwama High. At home, Miko scolded Yu for making such a reckless promise. Realizing her future now depended on him, she reluctantly agreed to train him. She started with the basics like proper stepping, but Yu's clumsy attempts looked more like hopping. Slowly, they analyzed Tatsui's strengths and searched for ways Yu might get close. During practice, Yu suddenly moved too close, startling Miko. She reacted instinctively, punching him in the face. While she passed him up, she scolded him again. But Yu didn't back down. He admitted he knew he had little chance against Tatsumi, yet he wanted to try. Not for himself, but because he wanted to stay with Miko and her sisters. He confessed he enjoyed being part of their family, even if he considered himself a freeloader. Then he gently urged Miko to admit why she turned down Tatsumi's offer. After some hesitation, she confessed she would miss her teammates, but more importantly, she didn't want to leave home. She had grown to treasure Yu's presence. Her honesty left Yu speechless. She added that Kazuki and Miwa's competitive nature also inspired her. Just as she revealed her true feelings, the door swung open. Kazuki and Miwa stood there, pretending they hadn't been listening, though their faces gave them away. Sensing Yu's struggle, Kazuki offered to help him train. Miwa cheered him on. Yu felt a surge of happiness. He wasn't facing Tatsumi alone anymore. He had a family by his side. That night, Kazuki and Miwa walk into the living room wearing bright pink aprons. Miko nearly jumps in surprise at the sight, but the two proudly announce it's their way of supporting Yu. Since they're wearing the same apron as him, you can't help but smile, remembering how clumsy they all were with housework when he first arrived. Now the sisters are determined to handle dinner on their own. They warn everyone it might take a while since their cooking skills still leave a lot to be desired. Before long, the kitchen turns into a disaster zone. Pots are burned, vegetables are half cut, and sauce spills across the counter. Eventually, Kazuki and Miwa collapse at the table, exhausted and defeated. Yu steps in, insisting they shouldn't give up. At first, they stubbornly refuse his help, but he points out that their efforts shouldn't go to waste. Even Miko teases that this might be her only chance to actually taste her sister's cooking. That convinces them to try again. This time, Kazuki starts with boiling broccoli in a pot while Yu reminds her to memorize the recipe after all. She's a pro at memorizing lines from scripts. Meanwhile, Yu shows Miwa how to peel a potato properly. She follows his instructions so seriously that she accidentally calls him sir, then blushes in embarrassment when she realizes what she said. Watching them struggle, Yu realizes something important. Even geniuses like Kazuki and Miwa stumble when faced with things outside their expertise. It reminds him not to give up in his own battles. After some trial and error, the three finally finish cooking. This time, they prepared Miko's favorite dish. She's stunned to see it went through so much trouble just for her, especially after their earlier disaster. Kazuki urges her to eat before it gets cold, so she takes a bite and instantly praises the taste. Yu beams with pride, but when he tries to lift his spoon, his hand trembles uncontrollably. His body has given out after all the harsh training. Seeing this, Miwa quietly scoops a spoonful from her own plate and offers it to him. Her gentle gesture shocks everyone. Yu compliments her cooking and Miwa blushes deeply, smiling in embarrassment. Not wanting to be left behind, Kazuki does the same, feeding Yu a spoonful of her own. Both sisters realize in that moment that they've always been on the receiving end, but giving something to Yu feels even more rewarding. 3 days before the big match, Kazuki and Miwa are still doting on him. They prepare towels, slice lemons, and handle every little detail. Miko watches with growing irritation, though Yu ignores her protests and keeps training, even when she insists it's late. 2 days before the match, over at Seika Academy, Tatsumi is already fired up. He remembers Miko's rejection of his school and seats with frustration. By chance, he runs into her in the hallway. Looking her over, he sneers that she's weaker now, not just in martial arts, but in spirit. Relying on someone else to make choices, he says coldly, is pathetic. As he walks away, he vows that he'll defeat Yu, and then drag Miko back to his school to beat her back into shape. The night before the match, Yu pushes himself through training at the dojo. Miko notices how much progress he's made, but she can't shake Tatsumi's words. Guilt stirs inside her. She apologizes to Yu, saying if it weren't for her, he wouldn't be suffering like this. To her, it feels like she's the one who's lost her way. She was always told strength was her only talent, by her father, by Tatsumi, by her teammates. But deep down, she knows she's more than that. She's also a girl who gets scared, who secretly likes cute and ordinary things. Yet she's always hidden that side, forcing herself to act tough. With a sigh, she admits she's not feminine at all, and apologizes again for being a burden. But Yu brushes it off, calmly saying she doesn't realize how a character she's been acting. That sparks her anger. She insists he's wrong. But Yu continues, explaining that when he first met her, he thought she was like a monster. The more he got to know her, though, the more he saw another side. Someone graceful, someone curious about beauty and fashion, someone who loves flowers. Miko cringes at his words, cutting him off and accusing him of watching her too much. But Yu clarifies it's not that. He just notices because every time it feels like he's seeing a new side of her. All those sides together, he says, make her who she is. Her strength and her vulnerability both matter. Miko is stunned. No one has ever told her that. Embarrassed, she punches him in the face, but his words linger in her heart. She still feels torn, though, wanting to make her own choices, yet unable to stop relying on Yu. He tells her they should face Tatsumi together, but she insists it's unfair. Yu counters firmly, then she should let him handle it alone. On the day of the match, Kazuki feels nervous during rehearsal, and Miwa struggles to focus on her game. Their minds are entirely on Yu and Miko. At the school's packed dojo, cheers erupt as Tatsumi faces Yu and Miko. The crowd is confused. Yu is supposed to fight alone, yet Miko stands beside him. Yu quickly explains the terms. The two of them will fight together. If Miko proves she's stronger, she can stay. But Tatsumi must defeat at least one of them. The audience is stunned, but Tatsumi agrees. As the match begins, some students record videos whispering doubts about Yu. He ignores them, focusing only on protecting Miko. He explains his plan. He'll fight first to wear Tatsumi down, even if it means becoming a sacrificial lamb. As the referee signals the start, Yu's hand trembles. Nico grabs it to steady him, but the crowd immediately erupts in teasing, making her blush furiously. She snaps at him not to be scared, then shoves him forward into the fight. Now face to face, Tatsumi vows to crush him. He braces himself, ready to show the results of a week of training. But the match ends almost instantly. Tatsumi defeats him in seconds. The crowd isn't surprised. After all, you only trained for a week. Nico sighs and thanks you for dragging her into this. Even though he lost, she knows he gave everything he had. Now it's her turn, but doubt creeps in. Just a week ago, Tatsumi beat her with ease. If she loses again, it could mean the end of her time with you and her sisters. Before the match, Yu quietly wishes her good luck. His words give her a spark of courage. The fight begins. Nico strikes first and the crowd cheers, but Tatsumi dodges effortlessly. She pushes harder, throwing punches and kicks, but he blocks every single one. Her speed earns praise from the audience, but Tatsumi still hasn't attacked once. He's just dodging, as if he knows every move in advance. Then, when she hesitates, he lands a clean punch, earning the first point. Tatsumi has studied Nico since childhood. Her style is textbook martial arts, fast but predictable. She tries again, but he counters with a swift kick, scoring another point. One more, and it's over. The crowd whispers that Tatsumi might be unbeatable. Tatsumi urges her to surrender and follow him. Even Nico wonders if he's right. Maybe giving up is the better choice. But then Yu's voice rises from the crowd, cheering for her. Soon, her teammates join in, waving banners and shouting encouragement. Nico flushes with embarrassment, but deep down, she feels warmth. She remembers Yu's words about all her different sides. For once, she decides not to hide them. She rises again, this time laughing in the middle of the fight, something completely out of character. Tatsumi senses something has changed. When she attacks again, he can't read her moves anymore. She surprises him with an unexpected upper kick, then follows with another unpredictable strike. Before he can recover, she pushes forward with both feet, knocking him back. This isn't the Nico he knows. She's no longer bound by textbook form. She's fighting with her own rhythm, smiling as she does. Right on time, Kazuki and Miwa arrive and watch in awe. Tatsumi realizes she's truly changed. But even this new side is part of who she really is. With one last strike, Nico lands another upper kick and knocks Tatsumi down. The referee declares her the winner. The crowd explodes in cheers. Just 1 point away from losing, Nico managed to turn it around. Tatsumi's teammates are left in shock, unable to believe their captain has fallen. Surrounded by her sisters, teammates, and Yu, Nico feels tears welling in her eyes. She tries to hide them, but when Yu steps forward and gently wipes her cheek, the emotions overflow. For once, the usually composed captain breaks down, crying openly into Yu's shoulder. Her teammates stare in disbelief, but none of them can deny it. Nico has grown, not just as a fighter, but as herself. That evening, Nico and Tatsumi meet one last time after the big match. Even though Nico knows Tatsumi only wanted the best for her, there's nothing more he can do now. She brings up Yu's quick defeat, but Tatsumi admits Yu still left a mark, literally. He pulls up his leg, showing the bruises from Yu's desperate strikes. Because of that injury, he couldn't dodge her final kick. And as he reflects, he realizes something. Yu must have really cared for her to fight with everything he had. But Nico refuses to believe it. She brushes it off, yet Tatsumi feels guilty. He admits he never wanted to recruit her just to make her stronger. There was something more personal. And finally, he confesses he likes her. At first, Nico is stunned. She takes it casually, almost like it's nothing serious. Tatsumi is surprised by her light response, until it hits him. She misunderstood. She thought he meant a simple fondness. But Tatsumi quickly clarifies he means genuine feelings. Real love. Only then does Nico finally grasp the weight of his words. She wonders how long it's been this way, and Tatsumi admits it's always been there, ever since they were kids. Now that his intentions are out in the open, he asks what she thinks. But Nico struggles, unable to process or answer. Seeing her conflict, Tatsumi stops her. He doesn't want to hear an answer because deep down he knows it'll only make him jealous of Yu. And with that, he leaves. Nico stands frozen, heart pounding. She's never thought of Yu that way. Yet as she recalls his words, that she should embrace every part of herself, her cheeks grow hot. Maybe she doesn't have to reject those feelings. Meanwhile, on her way home, Nico fumes silently. The others left without waiting for her. For a brief moment, she questions her choice to stay. But when she pushes open the door, her frustration vanishes. Decorations scatter across the house, and a banner stretches across the wall. Congratulations on your victory. Yu greets her warmly, standing at the stove, stirring food. Nico blinks in surprise, asking what's going on. Yu explains it's a party, for her win and for her decision to stay. But when she notices him cooking, she's stunned. She scolds him softly, telling him he should rest, let his wounds heal. But Yu only smiles and brushes it off. He insists he wants to cook for her no matter what. As the two sisters help set the table, Nico feels a pang of guilt. Yu has been working so hard, all for her sake. Wanting to return the favor, she reaches for his hand, whispering that she wants to do something for him too. Yu responds casually, but his words make her imagination spiral. She panics, overthinking, convinced he's asking her to spend an entire day with him, maybe even taking advantage. Alarmed, she quickly sets boundaries. But her sisters overhear and completely misunderstand. They think Yu is plotting something indecent. So they jump in, volunteering themselves as well. Nico runs to them for support, but in truth, Yu is clueless about all their suspicions. To him, their offer just makes things easier because all he wanted was simple. He just wanted to take them to the theme park. The three sisters freeze in shock. Yu explains it's been his dream to go as a family. Yet still, the sisters can't help but worry. Since they're all girls and he's the only boy, people might think it looks like a date. But before they can dwell on it, Nico's phone rings. Their father is calling. Yu picks it up before she can. On the other end, Mr. Mikadona was startled to hear Yu's voice. Without hesitation, Yu begins explaining. He talks about balance, how even prodigies need breaks, how even geniuses need family. But Mr. Mikadona only wants to speak with Miko. Yu passes the phone and immediately, her father brings up her victory. He points out that Tatsumi was known as the strongest martial artist in high school, and he admits he never thought Nico could beat him. He even considered transferring her to Tatsumi's school, but now it's unnecessary. Yu is shocked to hear him speak kindly, but Kazuki explains it's only because of her success. Even Mr. Mikadona admits he wonders when she grew so strong. And because of his earlier encounter with Yu, he grudgingly admits the boy might have a point, so he agrees. They can take a break. When Meko shares the news, Yu is overjoyed. He immediately suggests they go next Sunday. The next day, each sister secretly prepares. Miko flips through fashion magazines. Kazuki scrolls for tips on how to impress a man. Maiwa reads articles on how to make a boy swoon. All of them, without saying it aloud, want to be ready for theme park day. And soon the day arrives. Yu shows up first. Suddenly, someone covers his eyes from behind. It's Miwa. She steps forward, revealing a practical yet surprisingly stylish outfit. She made sure she could move around comfortably since a theme park can ruin delicate clothes. Not long after, Kazuki arrives. Her hair is styled differently. Her long skirt and modest top make her look almost unrecognizable. She insists it's just a disguise, but Miwa teases she went overboard. Finally, Nico arrives. And when they see her, they're stunned. Despite always claiming girly clothes don't suit her, today she's in a cute casual outfit. She shrugs it off, saying it's her day off. With everyone gathered, Yu leads the way, eager to start. What he doesn't know is that each sister is secretly plotting the same thing, to make him swoon. Their first stop, the haunted house. Yu turns to Kazuki and asks if she'll join him. She agrees. Since it's a collaboration with a horror film, she's intrigued. Inside, the haunted house is pitch dark. Suddenly, a ghostly white lady lunges. Kazuki doesn't flinch. Instead, she analyzes the costume, the timing, and the actor's movements. The ghost, frustrated, retreats. But only then does Kazuki realize she was supposed to act scared, so Yu could protect her. She looks around, but Yu isn't beside her. Instead, he's crouched in a corner, trembling. Kazuki tries to comfort him, but he pretends he just stumbled. When another jump scare appears, he screams, clinging to her. Kazuki shifts, becoming his protector. And as they exit, she carries him on her back, leaving the others stunned. Next, it's Miwa's chance. She suggests the roller coaster. Yu agrees, sitting beside her while the others skip. Miwa plans to act helpless, hoping he'll comfort her. But as the ride ends, Yu is nowhere near. She finds him sprawled on a bench, dizzy. Scolding him lightly, Miwa learns the truth. He's always been scared of rides, but he wanted to ride with her. Moved, she lets him rest his head on her lap. Yu thanks her sincerely and she blushes. From afar, her sisters watch, convinced Miwa is winning. Finally, it's Miko's turn. She drags him to the teacup ride. Her plan used her strength to spin it wildly, forcing them close. At first, it works. Their faces draw dangerously near. Her heart races. But before anything can happen, Yu nearly tumbles out. She catches him, but her chance is gone. Exhausted, they take a break. The sisters regroup, plotting during snacks. Miwa wipes cream from Yu's cheek and licks it, expecting him to fluster. Instead, he copies her playfully, leaving her red. Kazuki tries to share a drink, leaning close, but panics and shoves him away. Meanwhile, Nico struggles with her strict diet. Seeing this, Yu offers to share her churro. She takes a bite, and for once, she smiles. The day continues, yet none of them succeed in making him blush. By evening, as they prepare to leave, they wonder why Yu even wanted to come. But then Nico notices. He's watching a nearby family taking photos. Realizing his true wish, she grabs his phone. The four huddle together, snapping a picture. Afterward, Nico admits she had fun too. They all agree, thanking him sincerely. And at that moment, Yu finally blushes. They stare in shock after all their attempts. It happens so easily. But he only smiles and thanks them back. Later, on the train, they doze off. Miwa wakes first, glancing at Yu and her sisters asleep. Her gaze drifts, and she spots a flyer across the train. Her name is written boldly. Beside it, a single word, Peerless. The next morning, Miko and Kazuki woke up earlier than usual for practice. The theme park trip from the day before had recharged them, and suddenly, they felt motivated again. Both agreed a break once in a while really did matter. Yu rushed out to see them off. In perfect sync, they answered his words at the same time, their harmony leaving him smiling. Once they left, though, the house grew quiet. Yu soon noticed something, a lunch bag left behind. It was Miwa's. She must have forgotten it in her rush. He remembered how much she loved his cooking, often asking for extra snacks or side dishes. He couldn't let her go without lunch. So Yu set out for the venue of her shogi match, asking for directions as he went. On the way, something unusual caught his eye. A girl walked down the street with an open book, so absorbed she didn't notice when she bumped into a post. She shook it off and kept walking, still reading, until you realized she was heading straight toward a construction zone. Without thinking, he stepped in front of her and gently redirected her to safety. The girl finally looked up and asked if he needed something. You didn't answer. Instead, noticing sweat on her face, he offered her a pickled plum. Before she could respond, he rushed off. The girl, Sakura, stared after him stunned. Only later did she realize he carried pickled plums just like her. After asking for directions again, you finally reached the Shaja Hall. Rows of players sat in silence across from one another. His eyes found Meiwa immediately. She sat poised, sharp, and focused, so different from how she was at home. You leaned toward a mentor nearby, asking if Meiwa was winning. The man explained that she was the current title holder, ranked higher than her opponent, though right now she seemed under pressure. Her opponent hadn't moved in a while, creating a tense stalemate. Still, there was hope. Then you saw Meiwa's lips curl slightly as she licked them. The man's eyes lit up. He explained she always did that when she found a path to victory. And sure enough, Meiwa struck. Her opponent trembled, then resigned. Unable to contain himself, you rushed to her side. Meiwa was surprised to see him, but he showered her with praise, comparing her fierce presence at the board to her usual self at home. He even regretted not taking pictures, though she never liked him watching in the first place. Outside, you revealed why he'd really come. He handed her the forgotten lunch bag. Meiwa blinked in surprise. She hadn't realized she left it. Grateful, she suggested they eat together. But just as they were about to, someone snatched the lunch from her hands. It was Sakura, the girl you had met earlier. She accused the lunch of being the reason Meiwa had seemed off in her match. When Sakura realized the meals were made by you, her words grew sharp. She accused him of causing Meiwa's slump. She even tried to confiscate the food, but Meiwa yanked it back angrily. The sight shocked Sakura. For her, seeing Meiwa emotional over something so simple was strange. When Sakura called herself Meiwa's rival, you lit up. To him, a rival meant both a worthy foe and a kind of best friend. Sakura proudly declared that role hers. Meiwa scoffed. She had beaten Sakura more than 100 times without losing once. Meiwa hurled insults, but Sakura stood her ground, saying she only wanted Meiwa to return to her best form. You was confused. Was Sakura insulting or praising her? Either way, she declared she would challenge Meiwa's title. Meiwa was stunned by the passion in her words. Sakura promised she would study her closely. Later, the two girls sat on a bench. Meiwa opened her lunch, ready to eat, when Sakura plopped down beside her. Irritated, Meiwa snapped that she wouldn't share even a bite. Sakura replied that she'd brought her own. But when she opened her box, both you and Meiwa fell silent. Inside was a blackened mess. Burnt rolled omelets she clearly made in a rush. Just as she tried to pick one up, a dog barked nearby, making her drop it. Panicked, she scrambled to catch it, tripped, and fell forward. You rushed to help but slipped too, and the two tumbled to the ground, Sakura landing on his chest. Flustered, you checked if she was okay, but Sakura blushed furiously, slapped him, and accused him of causing a scandal. You held up a rice ball he'd managed to save, though it was ruined. Even so, the moment left everyone realizing how alike you and Sakura were. Sakura, regaining her composure, declared her challenge again. Meiwa grew irritated, but you laughed. Watching Meiwa argue so passionately, he thought maybe she found a real friend. She denied it at once. Sakura too insisted they were rivals, not friends. But their heated exchange sounded almost like admiration. In the end, the matter was settled. Their title match would begin in 1 week. Sakura's history wasn't ordinary. A professional shoujo player in her first year of high school, she had been overlooked because of her age. But through relentless effort, she rose into the spotlight. She even earned a title. Yet Meiwa was the one player she never managed to beat. To many, Sakura wasn't really a rival, but in her heart, she believed she was. On the first day of the match, you woke up early, trying not to disturb Meiwa as he slipped out. To his surprise, Nico and Kazuki were also sneaking away. Curious, he asked why. You admitted he planned to pray at the shrine for Meiwa's victory. Nico said her jogging route passed by the shrine, while Kazuki explained she needed research for her new acting role. So the three went together. At the shrine, they were surprised to find someone already praying. It was Sakura. She noticed them too, her eyes widening at the sight of you and Meiwa's sisters. You never thought of her as the type to pray, but she explained that since she wasn't naturally gifted, she sought help wherever she could. Dozens of prayer cards hung around, all written by her. When she asked why you was with the sisters, he answered honestly, circumstance. They had pulled him in, and now he supported them however he could. Sakura couldn't believe you called himself their supporter. To him, it was simply the best thing a mediocre person like him could do. But hearing that made Sakura fume. She accused him of hiding behind a prodigy's shadow. You tried to deny it, explaining that he was doing what made him happy. Still, Sakura wouldn't back down. For her, the spotlight shouldn't belong only to the gifted. She wanted recognition too, even if she wasn't a prodigy. She had thought she and you were alike, but realizing she was wrong, she stormed off, vowing to defeat Meiwa in their coming match. As she left, Nico and Kazuki remarked on how passionate she was. You quietly watched her until she tripped again. He rushed to help, but slipped too, leaving them in another awkward heap. The sisters glared, furious. Embarrassed, Yu muttered that he and Sakura really were alike, which only made her blush harder. The sisters turned back toward the shrine, clasping their hands and praying fiercely that Maiwa would not lose. Later, the first match began. Sakura opened with composure. Yu, meanwhile, stayed home watching the broadcast. When the sisters saw, they told him it wasn't necessary. This was only one of 5 games. But Yu argued the first match mattered since the schedule was tight. Hours passed. All 3 found themselves glued to the screen. And then came the shock. Maiwa suddenly resigned. Yu panicked, glancing at the sisters. Calmly, they climbed the stairs as if it didn't matter. But soon, heavy slumping sounds came from their rooms. Clearly, they were crushed. That night, Maiwa returned. The sisters rushed to greet her, almost forcing food onto her plate. Yu too had gone overboard with her dinner. But Maiwa refused. Normally, she'd be starving, yet she skipped the meal and locked herself in her room to practice. Inside, she studied the board until hunger gnawed at her. She reached for snacks but had none left. Stepping outside, she found bottles of protein and supplements by her door. Gifts from her sisters. As she bent to pick them up, she noticed Yu asleep nearby. Startled, she told him to sleep in his own room. But Yu explained he had been waiting. He prepared a midnight snack for her. Though she found it ridiculous, she followed him to the kitchen. There, Yu presented a dark chocolate shell, explaining hot chocolate needed to be poured over it. Miwa hesitated, afraid it would ruin the treat. But when Yu poured, the shell melted, revealing ice cream and cookies inside. Maiwa tried to hide her delight, but her expression gave her away. The sweetness soothed her, easing the weight of the day. And so the first game ended not just with a loss, but with a reminder. No matter how tough things became, Maiwa wasn't alone. 1 week after Meiwa's first match with Sakura, the 2 girls face each other again. The air in the Shoujo Hall is heavy, but the outcome comes faster than anyone expects. Maiwa resigns, suffering her 2nd consecutive loss. For the match rules, it's best of 5. Whoever takes 3 games wins. And with 2 losses already, Meiwa's back is pressed against the wall. When he hears the news, he immediately rushes to the venue. He knows what Meiwa's sisters told him. This series matters more than just pride. Arriving breathless, he scans the hall, hoping to spot her. But instead of Maiwa, he finds Sakura waiting. Sakura greets him with calm confidence. She wastes no time and tells him Miwa's already left. Then, with a cruel smirk, she asks if he came to pick up Maiwa, mocking her as a washed-up loser. According to Sakura, Miwa's problem was obvious. She hadn't studied enough, relying only on her natural talent. From the opening, her moves were shaky. Sakura leans in proudly. For the first time in Miwa's career, she has lost 2 games in a row, and both of those losses were to her. She even imagines Miwa must be crying in shame right now, and mockingly suggests you should hurry home and comfort her. But instead of snapping back, Yu only gazes at her. Then, to her surprise, he bows in gratitude. From Sakura's own words, he realizes Maiwa wasn't playing at her best. If she trains seriously, she can still come back. He calmly tells Sakura that since she told him to comfort Maiwa, it must mean she cares for her. Flustered, Sakura stammers a denial. Yu presses further, pointing out that the match ended long ago, yet she's still standing here. Was she waiting for him? Red-faced, Sakura explodes in embarrassment. Yu just chuckles and compliments her dramatic entrance earlier before walking away. At the door, he turns back to remind her that this isn't the end for Maiwa. Deep down, even Sakura knows he's right. When Yu gets home, though, he finds Miko and Kazuki staring at him in horror. Their shaken expressions make him tense up immediately. The sisters explain Miwa came home after the match but stormed out again. At first, Yu fears she ran away, but the sisters insist Maiwa isn't that type. They recall what happened. When Maiwa returned, they tried to encourage her, even comparing her to themselves. But Miwa snapped. She turned to them and angrily declared she wasn't like them. Those words cut deep. Before they could respond, she slammed the door behind her. For Nico and Kazuki, that was shocking. Maiwa usually retreats into silence when upset, to lash out in anger. That wasn't her at all. Which meant their words must have made things worse. Yu doesn't hesitate. He slips on his shoes and heads to the door. The sisters ask how he'll even find her in this storm, but he tells them to stay home in case Maiwa returns. Then he bolts out into the heavy rain. He runs aimlessly through the streets, remembering Maiwa's usual bright, cheerful self. To see her so furious unsettled him deeply. He doesn't know where to go, but he refuses to stop searching. And then he notices a glow of light in the downpour, a small cat cafe. Peering through the window, his heart lifts. There's Maiwa, smiling faintly as she plays with a kitten. Relieved, Yu rushes inside, drenched to the bone. The waitress hands him a towel, and once he dries off, he joins Miwa at her table. Instead of sulking in some dark corner, Maiwa is here in a cozy place, cuddling a kitten. She explains she visits the cafe sometimes. Her sisters are too busy to keep pets, and Kazuki even has a slight allergy, so this is the only way she can enjoy them. Yu gently brings up the match, hoping to encourage her. But Miwa's expression falls. She lowers her face into the kitten's fur and admits she never truly loved Shoji. The words spill out. For other players, Shoji is their life. For her, it was never about passion. It was only about achievement. She breaks down, confessing that no matter what game she had chosen, she would have chased the same results because what she really wanted was the praise and the sense of accomplishment. She recalls her childhood. Their father noticed her natural genius and wanted her to use it. He placed 3 boards before her, each for a different game. Without much thought, she touched the shoujo board. From that moment, her path was decided. She racked up victories, even earned titles, and soon became the youngest champion. Her father praised her, and her sisters admired her. That was the only reason she kept going. Unlike her sisters, who work hard because they love what they do, Miwa never felt the same. Whenever she asked why they pushed themselves so much, they always answered, because we love it. She could never understand that. She admits shogi is a competitive battlefield. Every time she sits at the board, she can feel her opponent's determination, and every time she feels ashamed, as though they'll see through her shallow commitment. Deep down, she knows the truth. One day, someone like her will stop winning. Unable to hold back, Miwa cries openly. You can only sit stunned before reaching out to gently pat her head. He thanks her for trusting him with her true feelings, but Miwa hesitates to go home, worried about facing her sisters. Yu quickly assures her she won't be alone tonight. She instantly misinterprets his words, blushing furiously and hiding behind the kitten. By then, the storm has passed. Yu takes her hand and leads her outside. As they walk, Miwa recalls his words from earlier. Around them, couples fill the streets, making her blush even harder. But soon Yu points out the large supermarket nearby, calling it the biggest in the area. He explains Miko and Kazuki thought Miwa was angry at them. Why not make amends by bringing them a gift? For Kazuki, with her mature aura, she chooses coffee jelly. For Nico, who secretly loves sweets, she decides on a cupcake. Miwa is surprised by the variety and carefully picks 2 boxes she feels are perfect. They carry their purchases to Seika Academy. Even though it's late, the staff lets them in out of respect for Miwa. There they begin cooking. As they prepare the desserts, Miwa notices Yu's skill and wonders if cooking is his hidden talent. But Yu laughs, insisting he's average. He explains that as a child, he felt inferior to his prodigy mother. Cooking was the one way he could connect with her, especially when she became ill. Preparing meals for her in the hospital slowly became his way of showing love. Though he struggled at first, imagining her delighted smile kept him going until he improved. Then he points something out. Earlier, when Miwa was picking ingredients, she looked the same way, as if she imagined her sister's happy faces. Flustered, Miwa denies it, but Yu just smiles and shifts back to cooking. They finish with coffee jelly for Kazuki and a cupcake for Nico. Miwa stares at them quietly, Yu's words still echoing in her mind. Maybe she thinks she really does love her family more than she admits. As the night drags on, Yu falls asleep beside her. At first, Miwa frowns, annoyed. But soon her expression softens. She remembers all the support he's given her. Reaching out, she pats his head gently before pulling back in embarrassment. Then, seeing leftover ingredients, she gets an idea. She decorates a marshmallow on a biscuit until it resembles Yu. Smiling faintly, she whispers to it. And when she sees Yu is still asleep, she leans down and kisses the marshmallow. Later, they return home. Miko and Kazuki immediately scold Yu for staying out so late. Though relieved he found Miwa, they complain he was gone for 4 hours. Yu apologizes, thinking they worried about him. But they quickly deny it, fumbling for excuses. Miwa steps forward. She admits it was her fault, explaining Yu only stayed to help her prepare something. Then she presents the desserts. The sisters are stunned, barely believing she made them. Yu insists Miwa did the work, he only assisted. The sisters can't hide their delight. They eat eagerly, even bickering over which treat is better. Meanwhile, Miwa shyly presents Yu with a dessert she made just for him. The sisters laugh, noticing it looks just like him. Then they spot a smudge near the head. Miwa suddenly remembers. That was where she kissed it. Flustered, she snaps at them to stop staring. And with that, the night finally settles. Days later, Miwa returns to the Shaji Hall. The rain, the tears, the doubts, she carries them all. But now she stands ready to face Sakura again. This time she isn't running. This time, she'll fight with everything she has. That marks the end of today's anime recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach a current goal of 10K subscribers.